Welcome to the Lucidess podcast, where I explore everything because I believe everything is connected to everything else, and also because I believe in the infinite, unbounded potential within each of us. Good morning. It's a lazy Sunday morning for me. It's a treat for me. I get up every morning at 6 a.m. and meditate. And the last few weeks, I've decided to allow myself to sleep in on Sunday mornings and then meditate later. Today I actually have an all-day meditation I'm going to with my Vipassana group. So as I've been lazily enjoying just being, I've had a lot of thoughts coming up. And I wanted to muse. I am not here. I honestly, if you're in a hurry and you're looking for something, probably not the podcast for you today. I'm not going to be concise or condensed. I have some great new thoughts in my head and great new musings and wanderings. This is not an arrow, so take that for what it is. Also, I think I know I tell you when I record these, I often just do audio that I upload. I might do video today because I took a bath last night and my hair is just like crazy and I'm just like in this half slumber and I think it's funny. So I might have to show off my hairdo and my lazy Sunday morning look. And it's like the most perfect day. It's blustery. It's maybe gonna rain. It's the perfect temperature. I have the windows and the doors cracked open. I wish you could hear the wind in the trees. I mean, you all know this sound. Just a fun, blustery. Is it gonna rain? Well, there's the sun. That's kind of how I feel about this whole day. So I want to share. I know. I'm trying. I don't even want to get in podcast mode. I literally just want to say. I just want to say. So last night, as I was taking a bath, I had this epiphany. And it was so brilliant. And I was like, how have I never seen it? And it's about trees. So I'm looking out the window right now at this beautiful apple tree, this huge old apple tree. And last night I was watching this show called Who Do You Think You Are? And I've watched a few of them. It's on YouTube. It's the UK version. I really enjoy the UK version. We'll leave it at that. And I think possibly because it's closer to my roots, right? Like my roots are in the UK, or not in the UK specifically, but they're in Europe. My roots are in Europe. And so I feel like the American version is a little less close to my ancestors. For whatever. So, and I also appreciate Europe's take on things a little bit more than America. I love being American. I love living here. I'm not dissing that, so don't come after me about that. Not that I don't allow comments for a reason. But anyway, see, it's funny. This is what I'm noticing. And this is why I'm going to have to put like a big caveat. Only listen if you're bored. Seriously, like listen if you're bored. This is a good one. If you can't sleep, you could put this podcast on that I'm doing right now, and you could like turn it down to like 0.75 speed, or maybe even 0.5, and I could probably put you to sleep really fast. I feel myself getting into like podcast mode, and I don't want to today. I don't know that I ever want to, but I still like automatically do it, and I don't want to today because what I want to talk about it can't be rushed. It's okay. It's about, first of all, I'm still trying to get to the tree. Still just trying to get to a tree. There's no rushing a tree. Like it grows how it grows when it grows based on the environment and all the other factors. So as I'm watching this show, Who Do You Think You Are? It's just this rerun on YouTube from the UK. And what's been so I've watched a few episodes, and what's been so interesting for me in watching those is that oftentimes when someone travels back into their ancestry, I found that the story they resonate with is like with their great grandfather's uncle, or so it would be like their great brother. Sorry, so it's like their great grandfather's brother or sister, or like it isn't actually. I have been very linear in my thinking of my ancestry. I look at the parents and the parents, and sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, that parent of that parent had 10 siblings. But I sort of like overlook the 10 siblings. The reason that's so fascinating to me that I've overlooked it is when I look at my kids, my two oldest siblings, there are six of us, I feel like my first child is like my first sibling, and my second child is a lot like my second sibling, much more than they're like me, like the way they look, that just lots of things. And I thought it from the very beginning. I was like, my gosh, I feel like I've had my daughter's child. And what's interesting is neither of them have children. So it was like I have my children, I have my siblings' children. and so and and so why would I over, and even my kids had said it have said at times like, wow, like I am kind of like your siblings more so than you. Or at least there's a very strong affinity there considering they're not their children. So when we go back into our ancestry, we aren't often like, I have had this linear view of the branches from, sort of like the node. It's like I've just looked at the nodes, like parent to child, parent to child, parent to child, parent to child, and forgotten about the huge spread of the branches that happen through the siblings, through aunts and uncles, cousins, whatever. Um, so as I'm watching the show last night, I'm watching this woman, and her affinity was with like her great, I don't, it was, but let's say it was her great grandfather's sister, or maybe it was her, oh, that was it. It was her great grandfather's daughter who, who ended up being killed in the Holocaust. So she never had children. Like that woman's lineage never went on because she was killed as a 21-year-old woman in the Holocaust. But I thought, and I'm watching, I'm like, this is so interesting because the present day woman has this incredibly close affinity with her great grandfather's daughter, who has really no progeny of her own, right? Her line ended. But you could see they looked alike. She's just, and I was like, I've been thinking of ancestry in too narrow a way. And all of a sudden, what I saw, and it's going to be so hard to describe this well. So if you can, close your eyes. And I want you to see a tree. Um, And I want you to look out at the farthest outer clusters, the clusters, and notice how there are these tips that are rather close together, in these clusters on the edge of a branch. But if you were to take two of those and follow them back, you might have to go back a long ways to find where they actually connect. And yet, and I would call that time. That you'd have to travel back in time. You travel back along the branches until you find the fork where they finally meet again. So you have to go back in time to find that. But in space, they're quite close. Spatially, they're quite close. Although they've grown along a different node of time, spatially, they're very close. They're in a very close cluster with each other. And the reason this is so fascinating to me is because there have been times where I've felt so connected to or close with a certain ancestor, even though our time is so far apart. And obviously, a big one was Lana Sawyer. During my rape trial, finding her also having gone through a rape trial 200 years before, 250 years before, whatever. And she had, well, we're not quite sure what happened with her, if she had children or not. But I'm not one of her children. But what I'm saying is, in space, she and I shared a very similar space, even though our nodes of time were so different, and they separated long ago. And this is so beautiful for me and so fascinating because it allows me to broaden my understanding. There are times when I have been so filled with emotion that was greater than my life about a certain event or a, a circumstance or a reaction where I have felt so close to some ancestor that I didn't know that it was that doesn't sort of fit, the linear sort of like that's a node thing that I've been doing. And I've always been like, I don't understand why I have this affinity, why I have this deep, response to this, because I can't see in my line very clearly why this would be so. But in other stories, that's where I'm saying you don't know where all the other lives branch to. There was one story where I won't get it right, but like someone had this incredible affinity for a place on the earth where they'd never been and no one in their family had ever lived. Like, and so as her lineage is traced back, she finds that one of her like great grandfather's sisters had like traveled to this place on the other side of the earth and lived and had a whole life there, and had married and had children. And and she's like, oh my gosh, that, it's like she feels that pull. And she's now living in that place. And she's like, I can't believe that I've always felt like this strong pull here, even though my family's not from here or didn't blah, 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 blah. And then come to find out, oh, well, they were, but it was 150 years ago. And it was just this one aunt or whatever. And so I just think there's so much at play, and there's so many powerful things happening that the mind can't understand, and that we've lost the understanding of. I mean, now that I see it, I think, well, yeah, of course, like I could see how I can be in a space and have such an affinity for it and not know why, because I can't see it on the timeline. Of course, we don't know everyone's stories, but one of the reasons this is funny to me is I have had 3 homes in the last 15 years or so, and they're all, and didn't matter how hard I tried, they're all within, I don't even know if it's a half a mile. I mean, but they're all, let's say they're all within a half a mile of each other, like this little triangular series of homes. And damn, as hard as I tried, it was like I couldn't get a home anywhere else. So I've ended up in this area. I didn't really want to be in this area, but it was just like, this is the place where it seems like, I have an affinity. Um, and who knows why. I know I have some, I don't know much about I know less about my father's side, but I know he had some pioneer stock, so maybe, anyway. Like I said, you're probably asleep by now, and that is just fine. Can you see? Isn't that cool? You can see like the sunlight coming through the blinds and the leaves in the tree. Quite lovely. It's even better this way. Um, so here's a funny story. I'm at my work, and I walk in the front door every day to the office building, not into my office, but just the office building. And I had never like paid attention to the plant. It's this big plant. It's sitting there right as you walk in. This big huge gold pot. And as I was walking through the other day, I noticed it, and it is like darn near dead. I was like, this poor plant, and like nobody's watering it, no one's taking care of it, and I had never noticed it. So I immediately go water it, and then I email the property manager. I'm like, hey, like this poor plant, it's like I said, damn near dead. That's how I titled the the email. I said, damn near dead. And so, and he was like, oh yeah, we're getting all new furniture, and so I was just going to throw it out. I was like, what? Like this poor thing, like it should be able to live. He's like, well, take it home, stick it in the yard. I don't care, whatever. So I did. I brought it. I lugged this big pot home a few days ago, and I have it sitting here, and I'm going to see if I can. I mean, it's good if it lives. It's mostly going to come back from the bottom, so it's sort of a. But that's my latest. It's my latest at saving what can be saved, from the ground up. Anyway, so this whole idea of part of our ancestry isn't tied to time. That there is definitely a spatial component, and that we can find ourselves in the same. We can have the same spatial affinity as ancestors who lived a long time before us. We can reach that sort of that same space along a different node of time. And the tree really helped me, kind of understand that. So, um, I guess I don't really want to, but I guess I do. I really want to talk about this as I move through it. I think it's so important, and I don't know why. I don't know why, but I think what I'm going through with my therapist is really, really important for me to understand, and I don't. And so maybe that's why I want to talk about it. So I went in last week and, shared sort of like my outline for what I needed, in order, like what works best for me. And I've done that with my other therapists, and it went really well. I would say I don't need a sledgehammer. That what I've learned is that when the space is truly supportive and welcoming, that the magic happens. That I open like a blossom, and it just happens. Um, I've realized that sometimes that can, when I don't open, I have in the past interpreted that as like a problem on my part, or therapists have interpreted it as being stubborn or unwilling or willful, whatever. But then when the space actually exists and it happens, we all get to see the magic. So with this therapist, he's definitely kind of a sledgehammer guy, meaning he mostly works with men, which is interesting in and of itself. And not that every man needs a sledgehammer, but many, it works, right? You kind of got to hit them over the head, and then it cracks open and they can get to what they need to get to. And he's definitely someone with that style, and he's very capable in that way. So when I told him what I needed, what was interesting is we then spent the next hour basically politely talking about he feels like it's too rigid for him, and he doesn't have anything to do. And at the time, I wish I would have said, why do you need to do any, why do you feel the need to do anything? What is wrong with just listening? as I process stuff. Why do you have such a need to be? This is what I feel. I feel like he has such a need to be useful. Um, yeah, like I've got to do something. And so here's the interesting part. I continued to check in with myself, and I remained present with myself, and the whole time I was just shaking inside. And the sound I always make is like that's how it feels inside. It's like when I'm super triggered, and I was the whole time, and I was like, okay, this is triggering me, but I'm staying present. It's okay. Like it's okay. We talked about it at the end. He was like, this was great. Like, I loved this. We got so much done. Da 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 da. And I was kind of like, well, I don't know. We didn't get anywhere with this conversation. You're basic. And I'm saying this is what I need. You're saying that doesn't. And so I'm saying like maybe this isn't a good fit. It's kind of where I'm like, I don't know about this. So we're like, okay, well, I'll see you next week. We'll talk about this some more. So I go home. It's a Friday night. And I just relax, eat dinner, take a bath, and then I get ready to go to bed. I lay down, eyes wide open. And I lay there for an hour, eyes wide open, just like, and that's when I realized, oh shit, I triggered myself too far. And I went from sort of like being triggered to life and death. So my nervous system during that conversation went to, this is life or death. We're on high alert. I laid there all night. At like midnight, I got up and took some CBD for sleep. Nothing. An hour later, I sleep with my phone in the other room. I go get my phone, I bring it in, I put on this really mellow audiobook on slow. Hour later, I mean, I'm just like, I think I slept maybe 2 hours that night. And I was so sad because I had tried so hard to go about this in a way that I wouldn't trigger myself to that extent. I mean, I don't mind getting triggered, but I don't need to go to life or death. There's no reason for me to push my nervous system that far. So I don't sleep. So then I have to get up. I guess it was Thursday night. I have to get up Friday, go to work, do a whole day Friday. I'm just like, oh my gosh. Or maybe, I guess it was, oh God, I don't even remember. Yeah, it was Friday. I'll work on Friday. By Friday night, my nervous system finally settled down. And then I slept like the dead, which is also not a good sleep. I get up Saturday, I'm so groggy. I have all these rehearsals. I get up, I go through Saturday. So then Saturday night, last night, I lay down and I slept like a normal person sleep. And I got up this morning and I was like, okay, we're back to normal. So this is my frustration with this therapist. I have tried to explain to him that I have the nervous system of like a fucking hummingbird. Like it's so easily triggered. So what for him was a great conversation was life or death for me. And I feel like I'm fighting him for what I need. And I don't want to do that. It does not work. It does not work. I don't care. I don't care how you say, no, you just keep talking about it. No, I'm not interested. This is a therapist. I'm not interested in fighting for what I need. So where I am today is I'm going to go in on my Friday appointment and say, tell him what happened. What for you was a great conversation, was life or death triggering that took me 48 hours to rebalance. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. It does not work for me. And I feel like we've seen enough. We've seen enough that his style, and I think he's probably a very good therapist. And so his style is not work with my needs. And I think and this is where I feel like we are. All I really need is to stay present. And I made this clear to him. I said, I just need, because he was like, It's to what he said, there's so much resistance or something. And I said, no, I have to stay present in my body, embodied presence. That is all I'm asking you to help me do is embodied presence. It's like, is that confining in some way for me, for you to help me stay embodied and present? And he was like, no. I was like, okay, like, and all I really need from the other person is a witness to my process. And there are times when they guide, I don't know how. I know it works because other therapists have done it. I just and it was interesting that he had so much resistance against it, and we had to like have an hour-long conversation because I want to say, this is what I'm going to say. All right, I'm going to say, what is more sacred than embodied presence and embodied witnessing? Like, what is more sacred? Like, what is there beyond that? I want to say we should be able to sit here as embodied present and embodied witness and just be. Like, that is that's everything. I mean, I think that's what's, I just, so, and I'm going to say, it might be uncomfortable to say, but I'm going to say, I feel like you need to be useful. And I don't need you to be useful. And that part of you that needs to be useful is getting in the way of what I need. And so if you need to, and I'm sure there are times that he does need to be useful and he does need to be strong and great, but that's not me. And I no longer want to fight this one person. And I just want to, so this is where I am today. We'll see if this one full day meditation changes things, because it always does. I don't think it will. I think it will just reiterate, which is I I know what works best with this nervous system. And it's not something I can do alone. I need another person to help. And this is where we both failed. I've told him repeatedly, I need you to ask me to check in with my nervous system. He did not ask me once during the whole hour. Not once. Not once. Not once. I kept checking in with myself. So I did a better job. He did not ask me once to check in with myself. Like, I've said to him, I've told him repeatedly, you can bore me. You can annoy me with how many times you ask me to check in. And he did not ask once. Not once. Like, it's not a good fit. It's not a good fit. And I'm not willing to be his guinea. And if he's like, I want to try, no, I'm not your guinea pig. You need to go learn on your own with someone else. And I'll meet you when you can do this with me. No, I'm no longer people's, not willing to, not in, I'm willing to learn with other people in my life. I'm not willing to train a therapist my style, because this is what I know. There are people out there who can do it already. I don't have to train them. They know how. So I know this because they've done it. So I think and here's where I think he and I, where we meet, our resonance and our conflict. And I want to express this as well. And maybe I'll get more clear on it, but where I am now. Our resonance is that we both have a deep affinity and desire for the masculine and feminine to truly connect within us and with others. And I would say I embody a great amount of feminine and he embodies a great amount of masculine. And neither of us are yet able, the feeling I get is that neither of us are yet able to actually connect to those within ourselves and with each other. So that's where our affinity is that that's something we're both working toward. I don't know this. We haven't spoken about it. But I'm just going to say, this is what I'm sensing. And where the disconnect is that he needs to be useful. And that desire to be useful it's like a cat pouncing on a mouse. It's like the second he sees something, it's like, pounce. I can do something about that. And that is the antithesis of how I work. When something, let's say the mouse appears, when something arises, I have learned that it's a gift. And whatever it is, I hold it as sacred. And I told him this. I said, whatever arises, as in my embodied present, when something comes up, heard, held, and honored, I hear it, whatever it has to say. I hold it, I honor it. And then it goes from there. And he was like, well, what am I supposed to do and all that? And I'm just like, what do you, like, what? It's everything. Like, to hurt, like, to be embodied presence. When something comes up, it's heard and held and honored. Like, everything's going to happen. I don't, like, it's just going to happen. I'm not in charge of this thing either. Like, it's just, I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know. And I keep going back to when I went through all, that phase of all that hatred. And that was one of the hardest things to do, was all this hatred coming up in me. And for me to hear what it had to say, and to hold it and to honor it. Like, here is all of this hatred. And it went on for weeks and weeks. And I think it was like 2 months of just like hatred. And I was like, am I just going to hate for the rest of my life? And, but I was willing to just sit with the process so was my therapist. Like, every week I'd show up and be just like, I hate everyone. I hate everything. I just hate. And she was so patient and just like, okay, well, let's talk about it. Like, all right, well, what should we do with it today? And his need to be useful completely denies me the space to just be with this shit. And I sort of said that last time too. I was like, we just need to be with it. He's like, well, what are we gonna do? I'm like, I don't know. Like, shit happens. Like, I don't know. It just happens. We don't have to, like, if we just follow this very. And he was like, and I said, I know it sounds like a static process. It sounds like bullet points, but it's not. It's a very dynamic process. It'll happen. So I feel like his need to be useful is just like undermining everything undermining the way in which I go about things. And I just feel done. I'm sad because these are I think our two triggers. And I've already said it. I've already told him, I've already said endings are so hard for me. I don't want this to end. I don't want to try to find a new therapist. I said this last week, and I think his is failure. I don't know that, but I think he doesn't want to fail. And so I think on Friday, I'm going to say all of this, and I'm going to say, what I'd like to do is actually look at those two. I'd like to explore what it means for me for this to end. That's where the resistance is. Why can't I just let it end? And I would, if he wants to, he can explore if that is his, his sort of like resistance. What does it mean for you to fail? What does it mean for you to have a client walk away and find another therapist in this clinic? Which is what I would do. I'd email the admin again and say, okay, this person didn't work. Can we try someone else? What does it mean for him to fail? What does it mean for me to end and to let it go and start over? Because I just don't like, I'm lining up I've noticed, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I've noticed I could go like this. Like, it's kind of cool. What does it mean for me to fail? I mean, yeah. Isn't it funny? I didn't mean to say that, but maybe it's good that I did. Endings are a bit like, I guess I've always thought of endings as loss, which is a trigger for me. But I guess endings can also be failures, which I absolutely know. So this whole, therapist thing has been on my mind a lot, which is funny because my other therapists, I had stuff came up with them too, but most of the time was spent processing other things. And this one, we haven't even got to processing anything. There were a couple of times where during the conversation where he wanted to go to the issues, and I said, no, I can't go there with you. We haven't set up a groundwork yet. Like, I still don't feel safe in You just want to like attack these issues. And I still am trying to get to a space where we have agreement on what we're doing, which is number one, the thing I've asked over and over and over and over. Please help me stay embodied and present in my body. Ask me a million times, what are you feeling in your body? I said, you ask, just interrupt any conversation. You can interrupt me, interrupt you. What are you feeling in your body? Still didn't happen. The one thing I keep asking for is still not happening. And that's where I go, okay, we're not even in the same ballpark. I'm just keep asking for this one thing, and the one thing isn't happening. So I think it's time to look at, my resistance to ending failure, his resistance to ending failure, and move in that direction and find someone who can, who understood, who when I say, I need you to ask me, what are you feeling in your body? That they go, okay. And then they ask me, what are you feeling in your body? Like, it's not like brain science here. But I get that would not work for every client. And I'm sure he serves other clients in amazing ways. So this isn't, which is interesting. It's not a failure on either of our parts, even though each of us might sort of deal with our own issues around it. It's a mismatch of the way, the way what we need, you know. So it's just kind of, I suspect that both of us, I definitely do, or I have in the past, have felt like pushing into the resistance is the way. And people still say that. Oh yeah, the resistance is the way, da 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 da. I would say that is sometimes true. Sometimes. Oftentimes the flow will take you to the challenge. Will take you to where you're most challenged. That if you just flow with it, you'll meet plenty of challenges on the way. You don't actually have to resist, move into any resistance. Like, it's just, the challenges come. They're going to come. That's the thing, is I think we're like fighting about trying to even get into the process of therapy. There's so many challenges for me to face where I'm going to need help. I can't remember what he said at one point. And I said, if I could sit at home and do this by myself, I would. Like, why would I bother? I would just get it. I would just go home and get it done. Like, I can't. Oh, that was it. He's like, when he was saying, like, well, what am I supposed to do? I was like, I can't do this by myself. Like, if I could sit at home and stay embodied and process all of my own stuff, I would. I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't, like, why would I? What the fuck would I waste my time and money doing this? Like, I just do it. Like, I need someone to help me through the process, because as is seen, it's hard for me to stay embodied and present when I start talking about certain things. Apparently, when I even start just talking to my therapist, um, it's crazy. It's frustrating. I have to say, it's my nervous system used to be a deep frustration for me. It isn't anymore, and I'm glad about that. It is. It is like, it's just an accepted part of who and how I am. Now I go, oh okay, that was too much. You don't move in that way. It doesn't work for you. Not many people don't understand that. It's fine. Your therapist is having a hard time understanding that. That's fine. We just need to have a conversation about, where I'm not going to do that again with him. Um, I mean, yeah, I'm not. And it was interesting because he felt so good after about it. And I was like, I'm not here to satisfy I didn't say this. This came to me later that night. I was like, I'm not here to satisfy your needs. And I hope I can remember to say that to him. I'm not here to satisfy your needs. The fact that you found that therapy rewarding is not therapy for me. I'm not here to satisfy your needs. I've asked you for what I need. It doesn't, you have great resistance to it. And at some point he kept trying to put it back on me. He's like, well, you'll have to decide if you're going to stay or not. And I said, no, I'm asking you, can you do this? Can you even do this? I said, I don't know you. I'm asking you to honestly critique yourself. Like, can you help me stay embodied and present? I'm like, you know you better than I know you, so I'm asking, can you? And he didn't ever really answer that. As I think back on it, there was never a yes, I can do that. I never got that. It's not interesting. I never got that. The other thing is, he's a good man. He's a good man. I think he does good work. He's got great intentions. He's intelligent. I think he's very gifted. Um, there's nothing wrong with him. I'm a good woman. I'm gifted. I'm talented. Nothing wrong with me. But we're just not on. It's like it's the opposite of the tree. It's like we're in the same time, we're not on the same space. It's like I'm growing on one branch of the tree and he's growing on another, like the opposite branch. It's like, we have, we have some resonances, but yeah, it's interesting because, if I'm talking about masculine and feminine, they'd be growing on probably opposite ends of the same tree, right? So I can see that. And in order for us to meet, it's almost like, I said neither of us yet have the ability to do that. And I can see why. Because in order for us to meet, he would need to not be useful. He'd just need to sit and witness as I need. And for me to need him, I would need to let him be useful. I guess. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know because I don't know. I don't really understand. I understand enough to know that there is great magic when the masculine and feminine connect in a healthy way. Something I seek. I think I've probably experienced it at moments within myself and probably at moments with other people. Um, but any kind of lasting, steady way, no. But mm, I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess I'm interested in continuing to share this with you because I think it's so helpful for me to speak it. I always want you to know you're the perfect witness. You never interrupt me. You never disagree with me. All the things. Um, but I think it will be fascinating for me to watch and maybe for others to watch me go through this process of exploring what do you do when it's not working, when you've asked for what you know you need. The thing that I think this is sort of like the hard and fast stop for me. There's part of me that wants to stay and say, well, let's work with this. Let's see what we can do. But the hard and fast sort of commit, the thing that trumps that is my commitment to sort of myself. I'm not willing to trigger my nervous system in this way again. Not on a like, if in order for he and I just to have a conversation, if I'm triggered every single fucking week, no, it just no. So the fact that we can't, so that's kind of the trump card, is as much as I would like to stay and work through some of these things and like learn more and actually connect more and all those things that I so desire. Not, I can't trigger myself every week just trying to have a conversation. That's not what, if that's going to happen, it's not going, I don't, I don't know that it should be in therapy, I think, or at least not to that degree. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I was going to say it should be in real life, but I've often, in the past, with my other therapists, I found that the therapy was a good place to practice things. Um, but it doesn't. It feels like I'm holding too much right now in therapy. Like with my other therapists, they held a lot, and I knew it, and it felt unfair. I was like, I know that they hold a lot in order for me to show up and practice what I'm practicing. And it doesn't feel like this with this therapist. It feels like I'm holding a lot so I can try to show up and practice, and it's like not working. It needs to, that's not, it's not what it's supposed to be. It's, and I would say to my other therapists, I'd say, I know this is staged, meaning I know that I get to come in here and practice saying and doing things, and you don't really respond as a normal human being. You respond as a therapist so that I can have this space, and I don't have that space with this therapist. I'm sort of just practicing. I feel like I go in and I'm practicing just holding on to myself as tightly as I can. And that's not what I want to be doing. I want to be unfolding and exploring what is going on in there, not like just gripping onto myself for dear life. It makes me sad. Again, it's what makes me sad is ending. I don't want to end again. And I'm sure failure's in there. It just feels like ending, another like loss, and another starting. I also don't want to start again. So that's, uh, and what I do know about this therapist is that, if I say I'd like to have a few more sessions and I want to talk about what it's like to end, what the loss feels like, what it feels like to begin again, the fears, the unknown, I do believe he will be like, yeah, I'll hear him. I will. Let's talk about those. Let's move through. I do believe he'll move through um, that with me. So the other thing that I've noticed throughout this is I don't have any animosity. Like oftentimes when there would be conflict, the hatred would come up. Like there would be this kind of like hating animosity. And there hasn't been any. There hasn't been any. And I feel like whatever I did earlier in this year with all that hatred, it really did change something. Like it's no longer like an automatic reaction for me. I don't have any ill will or hatred or there's frustration, but it's not even frustration. I'm just sad. I'm just sad. I wish it could be more, but like I said, my barometer is my nervous system. I'm not willing to, and the fact that he doesn't just do the very minimum, which is just ask me what I'm feeling in my body. Just remind me to check in. Like, let's stop and talk about what I'm feeling in my body. I need that more than anything. That's really a gateway for me to healing and to growing and to learning, and the fact that that doesn't seem to be something he can do. Yeah. Deep breaths, deep breaths. And so we're at 50 minutes, so you should be well into your rest. And so I'm going to be quiet when I say goodnight so that this just quietly stops. And hopefully your app doesn't autoplay something and it will just let you stay asleep. And don't forget to go out tomorrow and look at the beautiful trees and all the wisdom that they hold. Have a beautiful day.